This week's topic is something that was brought to my attention by my mom. And for a parent to want to discuss this and say that there needs to be more awareness about it is something that really was eye-opening for me, especially when it comes to the independence of their children and them having to move out. When I made these videos previously on my page discussing how I moved out of my parents' house and the things that you need to move out, the feedback that I had was very mixed, a lot of positive and a lot of people being in the same boat as me, wanting their independence from their parents, and a lot of other people saying, well, your parents are so liberal, you needed freedom and that's why you got it and that's why you moved out. But having discussed this with my mom and looking at all the other reasons and important things that a parent should take into account, as well as someone who's trying to move out of their parents' house, is so much more than just freedom. And these are the things that I wanted to discuss for you guys to get an idea of why it's good for you to allow your children to have their independence, and why, as someone who's wanting to move out, consider all these factors and know the real reasons instead of wanting to get lit with their friends. So if you haven't been to my page, welcome. I'm Hamasa. I look at personal development, mental and emotional well-being, as well as day-to-day issues. And by that, I mean things like helping you guys find the reasons, find the means of getting some independence, integrating into the Western culture, and juggling your cultural differences and barriers. So if you haven't been to my page, please subscribe so that you're up to date with my weekly videos. Let's jump into it. I had this call with my mom, and usually I do ask her because she's a lot more in touch with the Afghan community. She's very well known in what she does because she's been working as an interpreter and with refugees for the last 20 something years that we've been in this country. And so she's very much aware of the issues that they face because she works with social services and things, and she's a qualified counselor, so she could see where the cultural differences are becoming slight obstacles, or no, huge obstacles for families. And so the things that people should just be more conscious of or take into account moving forward. So she's got first-hand knowledge and understanding of these issues. That's why I tend to, and because I do these videos mainly obviously to help everybody that can relate to this, but mainly people who are of similar backgrounds to me, that have the same cultural obstacles, cultural differences, cultural limitations when it comes to navigating a life that you want, an authentic life to you, one that fits into your society that you live in, and one that's respectful of your background. So this is why, for me, it's always important to get her input on things, because she has a lot more knowledge in this than I do. What people actually struggle with and that I should cover and look into and discuss with you guys. And she's the one who's like, she was the first one to be unhappy with me moving out in the first place when it was years ago when I wanted to do it for university. But fast forward a decade almost, it's just crazy to see how much her mind has changed when it comes to moving out and having independence. Because now my brother and I are grown up and we're okay. We turned out okay. And I think this is where my mom can see, and she has this gift of hindsight to understand that allowing us to be independent and free wasn't a downfall, and it's not what she thought it meant, and how she's always been taught or told to do things and live life, and therefore she was trying to impose those generational curses, you may call them, or expectations enforced on us. But she didn't. She stood up for us, and she gave us that independence through conversation, communication, respect, understanding, a lot of emotional blackmail and tears, but it happened. And she gave us that freedom, and we were fine. Luckily, touch wood, we're okay. And this is where she's realized that how important this is, because when she compares us to our to her friendship group and the peers that, you know, we first came to this country with, and everything, like, we're doing a lot more. Like, those people were the first to point the fingers at my parents for allowing me to do modeling or to enter Miss England or to live the life I lived. It's like, your daughter will never make it, she'll fall off the rails and she's gonna lose herself. And to be honest, in comparison to all those families around us, we're doing much better and we're a lot more wholesome, which my mom has a comparison to make, the same comparison that she would throw in our faces when we were growing up, like, look at so-and-so's child, they're so successful, or they're so good, and they listen and you don't. It's now that comparison, like, those tables have turned. And not only that, like I said, she works with a lot of people, so she has a lot of information to base this on. And her advice was that, like, what parents need to understand, or we need to understand, that freedom and partying and friends and boyfriends and girlfriends and things are not the main reasons. Like, what everybody's really missing the point here is that in Afghanistan or wherever it is back home, when you live in a more closed off society and a more very integrated community that a lot of people have things to say and is quite small and is quite limited, you're limited for life choices. This applies to, a few hundred years ago in the West, when fashions, for example, were the same. So a 12-year-old girl dressed in the same, Victorian dress as her mother, because that was the trends. There wasn't like children's clothing and, adults. It's like once you came of age, the choice was very limited. And that's just dress sense. In Afghanistan, when it came time for food, for example, you ate what you got served at home. And whereas in the UK, we have a choice of which country cuisine we want. It's not even which dish from that country. Is like we choose a continent, we choose a country. And by that I mean, when you order food, it's like, do you want Chinese? Do you want Indian? Do you want Lebanese? What kind of food do you feel like? Do you want sushi? We go by country and then we choose what we want to eat. That's how much choice we have when it comes to food alone, for example. Back home, it was what you got given, what you got served is what you will eat. So you don't have that choice. Same goes with clothing. You wore what your parents wore, and it was hand-me-downs. And, even if it was new things, the choice was very limited. For entertainment, my mom was telling me stories of how when she was a kid and there was a family wedding, for a month prior to the wedding, my grandmother would make them do house chores, that if you don't do this, if you don't clean up, if you don't help out around the house, then you won't be going to the wedding. I'm not going to take you, because that was their only thing that they had to look forward to. And other than that was playing outside with the kids. Whereas there's so many activities for us at schools here, like we go to swimming classes, music classes, friends, birthdays, out, cinema, there's a lot more choice. So what's missing at home, back home, and in our societies, the reason they think that having you close to home is keeping you physically safe, keeping you financially safe, you love each other, because if you move out, surely you must not care about your parent, or your parents don't care about you. That's why they don't care if you living by yourself. All of those things are not really applicable in today's day and age and society, because you will still be fed, you will still be clothed, you will still have choices. So the only thing that your parents or your close-knit people are really there for, or you need from them, or they need from you, is that emotional connection and support. The physical side of it, the financial side of it, nowadays, like, people who reach their late teens to 20s and so on and get jobs, they can fulfill themselves. So it's not the physiological fulfillment. Yeah, your parents can still do that for you. It's the psychological and emotional and mental side that nowadays, because there's so much choice available to us, when that's not translated in our household or in a home environment, then we don't feel fulfilled. We don't feel content and satisfied with life. And no matter what we do, we will keep searching for that, and we don't get that fully because we are not given that freedom of choice when it comes to life decisions. In our cultures, there's a lot of this notion of do this because it'll make your grandmother happy, marry this person because your granddad's wish was this, finish this degree because your aunt wanted you. It's like a lot of things, and those things are not necessarily relevant to you, nor will they make you happy, nor will they move you forward in your life the way you wanted to. If your granddad's wish was for you to study accounting and you hate numbers, for that to be imposed on you or not, and for you not to have that freedom of choice or freedom of decision making or independence, is what, no matter what you do and you live at home, you will not feel fulfilled if that freedom isn't given to you in your home environment. For those that have it, for those that have a great relationship with their parents, they can communicate everything, have all the independence and so on, and still live in the parents' house, amazing, great, you have the best of both worlds. But most times the two, it's not like they're not correlated. If you live at home, I mean, I've had this said to me a million times, you live under my roof, this is my rules, this is what you're eating, or you're gonna go and clean your room right now, not later, all of these things. There are certain limitations and rules, and that's okay when you're growing up, because we need that. But when you reach adulthood and you come to a certain age and you have those freedoms elsewhere at work, in your relationships, in your friendships, in the food that you eat, the clothes that you wear, the places that you go, the forms of entertainment you want to see, then that doesn't happen at home, is when this breakdown happens, and then the resent starts building. And it's the same with the families. Just because your children want to move out, it doesn't mean that they hate you, that you no longer are the parent, or you hold that importance in their lives, or they don't regard you as... Just because they don't need you doesn't mean that they don't love you. And that's what my mom was saying, that when she works with a lot of parents, Afghan parents here in the UK, they believe that out of sight, out of mind. Once my child moves out of the house, once they get their independence, they're not going to want to know me. But that's not the case. If you allow that freedom and you have good communication and respect, which should be mutual, which should be on both ends, because again, the children are not that dependent on you, so you cannot push them through fear or through you have to respect me because I said so. That kind of mindset just does not translate the way it used to. And so all it'll do is draw a wedge between you and your children. So the sooner you understand that once my children grow up, I need to understand that they're grown-ups, and I need to give them that respect, love, support, and understanding, and pray for them and hope for the best. But I need to give them the room and the space to grow, to gain life experiences, to make good and bad decisions, to learn from them, and know that they will be okay and they'll have me here. Of course, when it comes things to like doing drugs and going off the rails and getting involved in like some criminal activity, it's your parents' job to come in and say, what the hell are you doing? And they have every right to pull you out of that and be like, wake up. But when it comes to general, like your choice of career, your choice of life partner, your choice of education, those things, there needs to be a room, a safe space that you can both come in, discuss, agree, and move forward, where both parties are happy. And it's those choices that are taken away from us in our households that creates this, I need to move out, I need to have freedom. And it's not the freedom that parents think it is, it's more the psychological side. And it's not the freedom that you may think it may be. For you also, it should be the freedom of choice above everything else. So this whole idea of I own my children is what basically scares parents to let you go, because then that ownership goes. And that's what my mom was saying to me, that as much as I love you and I want to kind of, you know, have you close to me and protect you and not allow any harm or anything to come your way, I have to understand that I don't own you and you are your own independent person. And the sooner I accept that and respect you for a grown person, the sooner you will open up to me more and you will feel more comfortable turning to me. Because what happens is, this fear I had myself, that I felt like if I tell my parents things and they don't work out, then I will be limited in making future choices and future decisions, and so they will blame me for this and they will tell me, see, you don't know what you're doing. So I'd rather not open up to my parents, because I don't want to have to deal with the consequences of it not working out. So I'd rather tell my friends, because they can accept it if it doesn't. And that was my mindset before. And so for years I went about like pretending like I was okay when I wasn't, and I could have really done some good parenting advice and guidance, but I dealt with it myself. And yeah, that has its downfalls, but it also taught me so much about myself, about situations, people and things, because I had to figure it out. I had no one to tell me otherwise. I would speak to my friends, but they also only had the same life experience as me. And so it was like you were thrown in the deep end and you had to figure it out. And that really, really helped me. Hence why now I have such a great understanding with my parents, because I respect their life choices and decisions and they respect mine. So it's a whole heap of things aside from this idea of they want to move out because they want to be partying and they want to be in a relationship and live a blasphemous life, basically. It isn't that. The society and the life that we live in, the dependence when it came to it being physical, financial, mental, all of that, is just not so tied down. We don't do the same things that we did. We don't live the same lives that we did. And therefore is the lack of freedom of decision making, freedom of emotional independence, freedom of life decisions, freedom of life experiences, learning and things like that, that's limited if your parents after a certain age still won't allow you to have that freedom and have your own independent life. And so moving forward, you will really lack crucial life skills, because you will literally be the property of your parents until you're the property of your husband or your wife. And where is you in between that? Where have you taken the time to figure yourself out and get to know yourself? Have ownership of yourself instead of being their property and then moving into the spousal property. So that's some of the reasons that, like I said, my mom brought to my attention and said that these are so vital. And as a community and as a society, the sooner we understand and accept this, the better and more elevated the next generation will be, with the parental support. Not that like we'll go off the rails, it's just that we will live a life that's more authentic, more happy, more fulfilling for us, as well as respecting our cultural boundaries and having a good relationship with our parents. Like, what's wrong with having that? And why are so many families still so fearful of accepting this change? Because like I heard this saying, and it is the truest thing, and I literally, like, my mom and I always discuss this, that strict parents raise sneaky children. So just because you're strict, it doesn't mean that your children don't do the things that you think other kids do, or that your children are saints. It's just that they do it, but they're just a lot better at lying about it, and they're a lot better at hiding things from you. So don't get it twisted. Kids are all kids. Teenagers are all teenagers, and most likely they're doing things that you probably don't approve of, but you just don't know about it. So the sooner you create this environment and safe space for your kids to feel comfortable enough to be able to tell you very simple things, the sooner you guys will have a more honest, authentic, understanding, respectful, loving relationship. I hope you guys found this helpful. This is a very hot topic on my channel, and the reason is because clearly we lack this safe space of having to come and discuss these things. That's why there is such a demand, or people find these topics a lot more interesting, because clearly, like, there is a need for us to have these discussions more openly, and that's why I want to create this space on this channel, that we can discuss these topics. And there's nothing wrong with having a constructive, open-minded discussion and conversation about these things. It doesn't mean that just because we're talking about it, I'm promoting blasphemy and you guys are like off the rails and I'm off the rails. It just means that we need to understand that everything else is modernizing. We're like, there's so many things that has changed in life, yet some communities' mindset, some people in the community's mindset is still of what it used to be 40, 50 years ago, and it just doesn't work anymore. So I hope you guys found this helpful. If you have, please do subscribe to my page, like and comment on this video. Please do share your experiences or thoughts and opinions on these topics. I love to hear what you guys have to say, or what you've had to deal with, because the more we discuss it, the more destigmatized it'll become. So please do comment, and I will see you guys here again next week. Thank you so much for watching. Mwah.